you all so much for this invitation. For the last 2 days, I have been taken care of by Lonnie and Dick yesterday after I arrived here from Virginia. And today I had the chance to spend some time with Mike Foley, going up to the School of Lourdes Central Catholic High School in Nebraska City. Tremendous. We had dinner last night at the Marian Sisters with Mother Anne Marie. Tremendous cooking for this Polish kid from the East Coast. And I had the opportunity to meet your communications director, Dennis the Menace from the diocese for an interview. And Dennis, once again, the folks here have given me an absolute Cornhusker welcome. So I want you to know that what happened here on stage with these three women was about coming together on this issue of how do you help a woman choose the least worst option for her, which is abortion. That's the reality. How do we change hearts? And where's the CMA table? It's somewhere. You guys and gals, we've been behind the curve after Dobbs. We have to begin to work together and collaborate. There's this group of Hippocratic physicians rising. There's a Catholic Leadership Alliance, Catholic Healthcare Leadership Alliance. They're building a coalition, spanning the divisions or the silos that we've had, because we must come together. And so to be here with you all and to see so many, I'm an OBGYN, I don't like lawyers too much, we all get. I've been deposed by Planned Parenthood Central, the apparatchik from the Kremlin, if you want to call it. Governor, Lieutenant Governor, all of you, including Auditor, my friend, who I have had the privilege of delivering 1/3 of his 6 children. There is something incredibly special going on here. To see this audience, I grew up in Arlington, Virginia, and there were people here like, Bruchalski and Conley and Flavin. When I had come back to my senses, there were shepherds here who would leave the one to leave the 99 to save the one. And I have met so many wonderful of our brothers and sisters in the non-Catholic traditions that have just taken my breath away, especially some here tonight. So this time last week, I was at the March for Life in Washington. So many of you have been there, and I know there were many students and people on buses making the trip. It's a pretty moving experience, a lot like what I'm expecting tomorrow, because you both have done it for so long, and you have done it so well. No fear, no anxiety, peace and hope abound. It's so inspiring. So I'm honored to be here to walk with you tomorrow, and to kind of live amongst your folks for the next few days, as I have been for the last day and a half. I needed to be with you because I needed to rest in your mustard tree. You have welcomed me, and I'm a Polish kid from New Jersey. This is like where you fly over. This is actually the heart of the country, ladies and gentlemen. Because remember, the issue is no longer back in Washington. That's the heart of darkness where I live. It's in these states now. The march is important there, but this march tomorrow, here, this is where it's at. And with what you have going on in the legislature, in the laws, in the people that are part of this incredible family, my God, This is the time because for 50 years, Roe is now dead. Praise God. And some things we actually have a new opportunity. We actually can say the word abortion. We actually can say it and talk with our friends about it because it's in our consciousness. It's not buried like the shadow that it is. You know, we're not proud, like abortionists don't usually vocalize that they do abortions. Because they're as traumatized, because I was traumatized, because I thought I was going to bring health and healing and wholeness. I was going to liberate you from the chains of your fertility. I believed that with all my heart, even though I grew up in a wonderful family. So in the midst of the march last week, and the meetings and all the conversations I was having, my PTSD set in. Because I did them when they were this big, and then this big. I did those for the first 2 years before I found myself seeing what I was doing. So I've learned to deal with this trauma as a memory that mercifully has been forgiven. Essential to the healing of my trauma is not just looking back to the Supreme Court, not back to the Capitol building, but it's also to look to the future. It's both and. And that's what you all are doing here tonight. You are building a coalition. It's what we in the Catholic Medical Association wants to work alongside the Christian Medical and Dental Society, and build a coalition alongside the American Association of Pro-Life OB/GYNs, and build a coalition that we can stand up for the truth of the science of what medicine and healing and health is all about. So it is this forward focus that I want to speak tonight for a few minutes, pivoting from my conversion, which is my crazy face was on a book that many of you received tonight, and it's about looking to the future. I know you've all been given this copy of this book, and I'm grateful to have this opportunity to share my story. It's the story of my conversion. It's about cognitive dissonance. It's about the schizophrenia that goes on with you when you're working at a pregnancy center at night, going to an evangelical church at night on Wednesdays, and doing abortions alongside many other things during the daytime. That was me. But ultimately the story leads to redemption, and the book is about hope. It's about all you moms and dads and sisters and brothers who have lost some family members on this issue. Or many of you all who have been hurt by the abortion and you've actually, by death, lost members of your family. Those ripples matter. That's why you're here. You have blood, sweat, and tears in the game. You have street credibility. So I was raised in a great Polish faithful family. We were Bible strong. We were Catholic. We prayed. I remember my father coming up. Somebody talked about where they were when Dobbs came. Well, I remember where I was when Roe came. I was practicing foul shots. It was a January day, and Dad rolls in from his high school, and he's like, "Johnny, it's Black Monday. The dang Supreme Court legalized the murder of children in their mother's wombs. No country comes back from that." He was a historian. He was devastated that Monday. But outside my family, I was slipping down the slope into relativistic thinking. When I went into medicine, I worked hard to save wanted babies, but I also helped abort unwanted babies. And then, just like Lonnie gave me that Cornhusker hug, and I learned that you welcome people, you don't want them. That family and Mr. Mike spent time away from their family to care for me this weekend. This is how you get through this. You show people love. You witness it with your own life. And here I was practicing essential health care, providing access to abortion. Years earlier, I visited Our Lady of Guadalupe Shrine in Mexico City, and I heard a woman's voice say to me, "Why are you hurting me?" It was between medical school and residency. I blew it off. If today you hear his heart harden not your hearts as they did at Meribah, Psalm 95, it's real. I know because I bought into it, because I left my family and my faith in order to follow my peers and my friends. I was worried about what they were going to say. And to see these pro-life senators and congressmen and women. I live in Virginia, and we've got a really good governor. Almost as good as New York. No, I'm just but he's better. Yeah, like I see, as a gynecologist, I know women always have, thank you, Susan, for doing, helping him do whatever he tells you. Being a gynecologist, I agree with that. But to see the legislature here, to see an old friend, Jeff Fortenberry, here, God, how I miss him. I miss being around people like you. We have good people, but not to this volume. You have something special going on here as a leader. As a self-confident resident, I made a critical mistake one day. I didn't do a good history and physical. I delivered a baby too large to let die. The baby weighed over 500 grams, and I needed to call the neonatologist. Stop giving me tumors, she said. Dr. Debbie Plum. She's a mentor and still a dear friend of mine. Stop treating these babies like tumors to be cut out and destroyed like cancer. I was floored. I was like, what? What are you talking about? She suggested that I reassess my life and go on a pilgrimage. Go on a retreat with the Lord. And providentially, a few days later, my mom suggested the same place, so I went. And there on the hill, I touched the mercy of God. The lance is like 5 inches wide that jabbed into his chest, the Roman lance at the time. Longinus jabbed him there so blood and water would come out. That's the heart of mercy. Whether I was in my evangelical church or in my Catholic church, it's the blood of Jesus Christ that saves us. Amen. It's also where the love of Jesus Christ heals you. I fell on the ground. This is prayer. This is just prayer time, folks. I just fell on the ground. I saw the scales came off my eyes. I'm a man of unclean lips. Even though I had the knack of listening to PMS and to menopause and to hormones and to collaborating with the whole human person and thyroid disease and all that we do in gynecology. I had a knack for it. But I felt beloved for the first time in my life. And when I made my confession after that, it was like freedom. Letting go. Because somebody took the time to witness to me. That's what Laura, Lisa, and Sandy do. That's what you all do on the floor of your Congress, on the floor of your unicameral legislature. I'm from Virginia. Give me liberty or give me death, Patrick Henry said. We have history. Nebraska has history in this movement. And there are people who unite. This is not coincidental either. Look at this. Look at this family here. So, she said, in my heart I heard, practice excellent medicine, Johnny, see the underserved daily, and follow the teachings of my son in word and in his church. Just go do that. So with that, we founded Tepeyac Family Center in 1994. It was an OB/GYN practice to do life-affirming medicine. Now, why could I do that? I think you are familiar with the Pope Paul VI Center in Oman. Is that right? I read an article written by Dr. Tom when he was at Mayo Clinic. And he showed the fallacy of maternal mortality and morbidity with abortion. How they flipped and turned it on its head, like they always have, they're still not even reporting all the numbers, right? It's like this shadow. Like, why is it? Because it's so dang brutal. I did them, I know. I challenge medical students and residents across the country. You know what? If you're pro-life, you better get involved with these services. You have to put skin in the game. And for you pro-aborts, listen, I get it. I tried. I couldn't do it. But you better go abort babies because there's less and less and less doctors. That's why you're asking nurses and nurse practitioners and medical assistants to do your dirty work, like California or Michigan or New York. There's a reason why doctors don't do this, because there's an oath about healing and health and wholeness, and it fractures us. But we need to figure out a way to use language through the mercy of God to engage, even though words no longer matter. So our vision of life-affirming medicine is based on a few pillars. Medicine is relational, sacrificially so. So we come to know two patients. You walk with them. Do you know we partner with regional pregnancy centers? We know they're not a full-service medical center. Send them to us. We'll figure out how to do it. We used to be for-profit. Now we're an almshouse. We beg. Begging is becoming. Pastor. I'm telling you, you were wonderful tonight with your invocation. Ronald Reagan. Jesus Christ. My gosh. We stand on shoulders. I stand on the shoulders of Dr. Tom Hilger and his son who just got into the political. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Second, we also never pit mom against baby, ever. Medicine becomes for us an act of mercy, always. Nothing is better to show the distinction between abortion and life-affirming medicine, at least in my experience, is by telling people about our perinatal hospice program. Rather than taking a mom and baby whose baby has just been found to have a life-threatening illness, that when we cut the umbilical cord, that mom is going to suffer because that child is not going to live very long. What is the status quo today? Abort that child as soon as possible to prevent further suffering. Don't let that child see its brothers and sisters. Get it done now because you're helping. I did that. I did it for even patients who were afraid of that diagnosis. We do a lot of things planting fear in people's hearts. And life-affirming, what that doctor table does, they don't do that. That's what you don't do. You look people in the eye, you tell them up front, this is going to be really tough. But Paul keeps talking about if you suffer with him, you will reign with him. But it's hard to do that in that moment because they're facing a wanted, welcomed, loved child. And many of us here might have done that, delivered them early. I get it. But we found a little better, different way. Perinatal hospice. Each minute a parent spends with their child is precious. The goal is to carry each pregnancy to its natural fruition, your fruit of the womb, so to speak, and deliver in the fullness of time. Moms who have sick kids want to spend time with their sick children. They don't want to say goodbye right away. They might do it out of fear, they might say it. But as doctors who care for body, soul, and spirit, we have to give them what we think is best for them. What is health? The wages of sin are death. You get it, but you got to do that medically. And that's what my brothers and sisters here in this Omaha Lincoln CMA. I developed a complete heart block with a heart rate of 20 after I visited you all last time. I'm looking at Dr. Hilger there, he was wonderful to me. He loved me while I was here. And I'm convinced that by talking and collaborating with the minds and hearts Those doctors and nurses and people who moved the 18 inches from their gray matter to their cardiac tissue, the way their pastors and their priests and their elders encourage, that's the secret to renewing medicine. Our third pillar is about hating the disease yet loving the patient. You never get rid of patients by getting rid of the patient with the disease. Down syndrome. And by positing, when a patient comes in and goes, Dr. Bruchalski, what is this? Like, I've been to 3 other good doctors, and they never offered us this. I'm going to choose this way to go, even though it's a lot more, it's harder. But in the end, they know that it's not in the shadow anymore. That little Jenny or Janie or Chrissy can be told to the whole family. And if the family's there, those brothers and sisters kiss that child. We actually have a story that I'm not going to go into, that an abortionist who covered me while I was getting chemotherapy stopped doing abortions after he challenged me about what in God's name are you delivering monsters for? 7 years later, he comes back to me and says, Johnny, do you remember that night? Yeah, I remember it, Dr. B. He goes, there was more love in that room over this monster. I'm a good doctor. I want my patients to love their children and their families that much. I've never seen that before. That's the experiential nature of what we're doing here tonight. They go beyond the ballot box and the law, which we need, but they actually do it heart to heart, patient to patient. Our fourth thing was about almsgiving, which I'll pass. So I firmly believe that medicine is truly broken. The heart of medicine has contracted and hardened. Patients no longer trust their doctors or the system, right? COVID, there was only one way to treat that. OB, GYN, everybody at that table. Come on, don't you do reproductive medicine? So here I was last Friday testifying on the Pain Capable Act in Virginia. We can't get it at all to 20 weeks. After my testimony and a few of the Life-Affirming folks, the other side did, and the ACOG professor started angrily talking about how this was an abomination, that this medicine they talk about hurts women and is bad for families, and it's bad for society. And I'm ACOG, she said, not that guy. And then she looked over her shoulder and she looked at me and she says, and oh, by the way, we now have the power to help stop mis- and disinformation. We will take away their licenses. We will make them not able to get a job. Hey, nice to meet you. You want to talk sometime? Grab a cup of coffee. I'm a dark coffee guy. What about you? You want to do it over like a single malt scotch? Yeah, we can do that too. On a good day. That's where we're at, folks. That's how important what you're doing here tonight really is. We are in Huxley's Brave New World, as you all know. Our good bishop tonight and I were talking about the historical perspective of this. You are standing for this moment. You and all of us were made for this moment. So once again, some examples from ACOG. Avoid the word late-term abortion due to no medical clinical significance, and use just abortion later in pregnancy, or reference the weeks. Avoid chemical abortion, which is biased to sound scarier than the safe, effective medical intervention it really is. So use medication abortion. Avoid surgical abortion, since abortion is not surgery. Be clinically accurate, so just use abortion procedure. Remember, language manipulation occurs before cultural manipulation. And that's what we're having. Mercy, as Flannery O'Connor said, leads to the gas chamber. She was running in the 40s and 50s and 30s. Mercy today leads to the abortion clinic. It's mercy killing, it's eugenic. Avoid references to dismemberment, not good. The recommended approach to the abortion procedure after 12 weeks is called dilation and evacuation. When we dilate the cervix, use forceps and vacuum aspiration in combination with forceps. Let's call it disarticulation. This is from ACOG. Talking of doctors, use physicians who provide abortions. Avoid using abortion provider. Avoid references to baby or unborn child, which is wrong because this language centers on a future state of pregnancy, which is medically inaccurate. Avoid elective abortions, which is what we were taught early on by APLOG to use. It adds the unnecessary elective description that can differentiate between reasons for abortion care and diminish the value of abortion care that so many people need. Avoid womb. This is a non-medical term that can be used to apply emotional value to a human organ. A gentleman that happened to have dinner at our house once, his name was Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He wrote a short essay in February of 1974 titled, "Live Not by Lies." That same day in Russia, the secret police broke into his apartment, and the next day he was exiled to Vermont. He ends up in Vermont. It just so happens that the bishop and I have a common thread through the person who got him to speak, who's a friend of ours. I was a young man at the time. He was not much older than I was at that time. And he's talking about living by lies. They say men can carry a child, pregnant people. That's a lie. They say sexual freedoms are better and more important than religious freedom. That's a lie. They do dehumanize unborn babies. That's a lie. They say unborn babies do not feel pain. It's only a reflex. That's what they told me. But no, they kind of like pull back. Like when I do my ultrasounds on them, they're like fighting me. That was after the silent scream. It's real, folks, for me. It's wonderful to be here. They dehumanize us all, saying we're no different from any other life. We're all born out of the slime, and animals and rivers and trees are worth as much dignity as us. That's a lie. And I go on. But hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, let's refuse to say and live that which we do not think or believe. I know that after listening to our pastor, you once again convicted me in the power of the Lord, as well as Sandy's son. We can do this. It's like St. Paul. Ladies and gentlemen, if the good Lord could bring me a way to take me from where I was in the slop, standing here tonight to talk to you all as a life-affirming OBGYN and having friendships with my doctor brothers and sisters, and now my pregnancy set, I know that when they put his hands behind his back and they tied him up and they sent Paul off to Rome, Paul knew in his heart that the Lord was going to provide. Just like we all do tonight. No matter how hard, no matter how much money, no matter how challenging. Think of our lives. He brought us from where we were to where we are through grace alone, through faith. So looking forward, Dobbs, how are we all going to get our acts together? Don't worry. We're all going to be used as his tools. And I am proud to be in this fight with you. Let's pray for each other and keep up the good fight. Continue to love the patient, the voter, our brothers and sisters, our family, our communities. We're going to play the long game and never get discouraged because life is very, very, very good. So don't be afraid. Keep on speaking. Don't be silent. Walk tomorrow. And as our Lord promises, for I am with you and no one is going to harm you. Good night. Thank you so much for listening.